In the peaceful and lively village of Zuwala, everyone admired the beautiful couple, Mureya and Tafari. People looked up to them as a symbol of love, unity, and success. Mureya was known for her gentle heart, intelligence, and grace. She was the kind of woman who carried herself with dignity, always helping others and treating everyone with respect. Tafari, on the other hand, was a wealthy merchant who had earned his fortune through trade and business. He was handsome, confident, and well respected. Together, they looked like a dream couple, the kind you'd read about in fairy tales. Their love seemed strong, their home was luxurious, and villagers often said, "May our daughters be like Mureya, and our sons grow to be like Tafari." From the outside, everything seemed perfect. Their smiles, their laughter, the way they walked hand in hand during festivals. Everything made people believe they were living an ideal life. But behind those smiles and behind those walls, something was changing. Something was breaking slowly. There were whispers in the wind, things people could not see, but Mureya could feel deep within. A coldness in Tafari's eyes, a growing distance, and late nights that were never explained. Still, she held on, hoping it was just a phase. But deep inside, a storm was beginning to rise, one that would shake everything they had built. They say every home has its secrets, and soon, the perfect picture of love that everyone admired would begin to crack, revealing a truth so painful, so unexpected, that it would leave the entire village of Zuwala speechless. What was once called the House of Love would soon become the House of Betrayal. And in that betrayal, a fire would be born. Not a fire to destroy, but a fire to transform. A fire that would turn a broken woman into a powerful force. Because sometimes, when life pushes a woman to the edge, she doesn't fall, she flies. Everything began to change the day Nwena stepped into their home. Mureya, overwhelmed with daily chores and responsibilities, decided to hire a maid to help manage the household. She wanted someone humble and hard-working, someone who would simply assist and bring peace to the home. That's when she met Nwena, a young woman from a faraway village called Banura. At first glance, Nwena looked like a blessing. She was strikingly beautiful, tall, graceful, with smooth, dark skin that glowed under the sun and eyes that carried a mysterious charm. People often stopped and stared when she walked by, mesmerized by her beauty. But what they didn't see was what hid beneath that beauty, a heart filled with jealousy, greed, and secret desires. Mureya, with her usual kindness, welcomed Nwena with open arms. She treated her not like a maid, but like a younger sister. She offered her clean clothes, taught her how to speak politely, how to walk with confidence, and even encouraged her to attend literacy classes in the village. People admired how generous Mureya was, saying she was a rare woman with a golden heart. Nwena smiled, nodded, and acted grateful, but deep inside, she was observing everything. She watched the way Tafari looked at Mureya, the way their home was filled with love, wealth, and respect. And slowly, poisonous thoughts began to grow in her mind. Nwena wanted more than just a maid's life. She didn't just want to serve, she wanted to be served. She didn't want to clean the floors, she wanted to walk on carpets like a queen. And worst of all, she started to desire what was not hers. Tafari. Every day, while Mureya was busy, Nwena found small ways to get closer to him, serving him tea with an extra smile, brushing past him while sweeping, giving him long glances that lingered a bit too long. She played innocent, acted shy, but her moves were deliberate, and slowly, Tafari's eyes started to wander. Mureya didn't notice the danger. She was too busy believing that kindness would always be returned with loyalty. She didn't see the way her husband's eyes changed when Nwena entered the room. She didn't notice the small, quiet smirks Nwena gave when their eyes didn't meet. She didn't realize she was nurturing a snake that was preparing to strike. Mureya had opened her heart and her home to someone she thought was a blessing, but in reality, she had unknowingly invited her biggest enemy into her life. And while she continued to give love, Nwena was planning her betrayal, slowly, silently, and wickedly. It wasn't long before Tafari's heart, once loyal to Mureya, began to drift. Nwena's beauty became a dangerous distraction, one he could no longer ignore. At first, he tried to shake it off, convincing himself it was just admiration. But Nwena knew exactly what she was doing. By day, she acted humble and obedient, always lowering her gaze, always speaking softly, always pretending to be nothing more than a grateful maid. But at night, her eyes lingered longer, her voice softened into a gentle whisper, and her steps became slower and more graceful. almost like a dance meant only for Tefari to see. Tefari, blinded by desire and his own foolishness, fell deeper into the trap. It began with stolen glances, moments too long to be innocent. Then came the subtle touches, her hand brushing his as she served food, her body brushing too close while passing by. Mireia didn't notice these things, but Tefari did, and each time, his resistance crumbled a little more. Nwena never rushed. She was patient, feeding his ego, making him feel wanted, desired, and powerful. And before long, those late-night thoughts turned into actions. Tefari began sneaking out of the marital bed after Mireia fell asleep. He tiptoed through the quiet house to meet Nwena in the servant quarters. Their affair started in silence, like a dark secret whispered into the night. What began as lustful moments turned into a full-blown betrayal. Tefari was no longer the devoted husband Zuwala once admired. He had become a man ruled by his desires, blind to the pain he was planting in his own home. Behind Mireia's back, the bond between husband and maid grew stronger, not with love, but with lies and lust. They shared stolen nights, hidden laughter, and careless whispers. Tefari, drunk in sin, didn't even realize how far he had fallen. He began ignoring Mireia, snapping at her, coming home late, pretending to be tired just to avoid her presence. The warmth between husband and wife slowly faded, replaced by silence and cold glances. But secrets have a way of crawling out, no matter how deep they're buried. And though the affair was hidden in the shadows, the whispers had begun, quiet talks among other servants, suspicious glances from neighbors. The betrayal was growing roots, and soon those roots would crack the very foundation of everything Mireia had built with love and trust. The affair between Tefari and Nwena slowly moved from whispers and glances to something deeper, more dangerous. Tefari, completely consumed by his lust, started doing things that crossed every line of respect and loyalty. He began spoiling Nwena with gifts, fine fabrics, shiny jewelry, sweet perfumes, all the things that once belonged to Mireia's world. He didn't even care to hide it anymore. He would bring home parcels, pretending they were for business, but Nwena would receive them behind closed doors with a wicked smile. The same hands that once held Mireia with love now held the maid in secret. Tefari even started taking Nwena to the nearby market town of Kaleto, where no one from Zuwala would recognize them. But he knew what he was doing was wrong, so he disguised her, dressing her in different clothes, and told everyone she was his distant cousin visiting from another land. They walked side by side like a couple, laughing, eating, and shopping while Mireia stayed home, wondering what kept her husband away for so long. The same man who once rushed home to share stories of his day now came back silent and distant, eyes always tired, heart always elsewhere. At home, Mireia noticed everything. The way his eyes no longer sparkled when he looked at her, the way his hands no longer reached for hers, the way his words had turned cold and short. He no longer complimented her food, no longer brought her little gifts, and the late-night talks they once shared were replaced with excuses and silence. But Mireia, a woman of hope and patience, kept telling herself that marriage had seasons. Maybe he was stressed, maybe work was hard, maybe he just needed space. She continued to give him love, still cooked his favorite meals, still greeted him with a smile, even when his own smile was long gone. But what Mireia didn't know was that the enemy she feared wasn't outside. It was inside her home, wearing the clothes she had given, sleeping in the house she had built with love, and stealing the man she had given her heart to. The betrayal was no longer a distant shadow. It was now a storm gathering right outside her door, and soon it would blow the truth wide open. It was a stormy evening. The skies above Zuwala growled with thunder, and rain poured like tears from the heavens. Mireia, returning early from a women's gathering in the village, walked through the muddy path with her shawl wrapped tightly around her. She had no idea that her life was about to be shattered in a way she never imagined. As she pushed open the front door of her home, something felt off. The house was too quiet, eerily quiet. A strange feeling tugged at her heart, but she brushed it off and walked in. She stepped into the bedroom, only to stop dead in her tracks. Her heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, time froze. There, on the very bed she had shared with her husband for years, lay Tefari and Nwena, tangled in each other's arms, lost in the very betrayal she had never imagined. Their clothes scattered carelessly on the floor. Their laughter died the moment they saw her. Tefari jumped, eyes wide with guilt and panic. He stuttered, trying to find words. Any words. But the damage was done. The truth stood naked before Mireia. Nuena, bold and shameless, didn't even try to cover her wicked smile. She looked Mireia in the eyes, not with fear, but with pride, as if she had won some twisted victory. But Mireia, she didn't scream, she didn't cry, she didn't throw things or curse them. She simply stared for a moment, eyes heavy with heartbreak, then turned around and walked away in silence. That silence was more painful than 1,000 screams. She entered the guest room, closed the door quietly, and locked it behind her. Inside, she sank to the floor, her back against the wall. Her body trembled, but not from weakness, from something deeper, something boiling slowly in her soul. Her hands shook, her heart pounded, but still, not a single tear dropped. That silence was loud. It spoke of a pain too deep for words, a betrayal too heavy for tears. Tefari paced outside the door, begging, knocking, trying to explain. But Mireia didn't respond. She remained still. But in that silence, something began to grow. Not just pain, but strength. Something cold, something fierce, something that whispered, "You will rise," but not as the same woman you were before. Mireia's heart had broken, yes, but it was in that brokenness that something powerful was about to be born. Mireia was no ordinary woman. She was the daughter of Elder Azan, a man known across Zuwala for his wisdom and calm strength. From him, she had learned that true revenge does not come with noise. It comes with grace, patience, and quiet power. After the betrayal, while everyone expected her to break down or fight back with anger, Mireia chose a different path. She rose from her pain, wiped her tears in silence, and began to plan, not to destroy, but to rebuild herself, stronger than ever before. She started leaving home more often, telling Tefari she was visiting old friends or attending prayer meetings. But in truth, she was traveling to the nearby town of Doruko, where business minds gathered. She enrolled in workshops, listened to lectures, and sat with women who knew how to build empires from dust. Day by day, her mind sharpened, her confidence returned, and a new fire began to burn inside her. A fire not of revenge alone, but of purpose. Within months, she used her old savings, money she had secretly kept over the years, and reached out to quiet investors who believed in her. With her knowledge and determination, she launched her own textile brand called Mireia Wears. At first, it was a small shop in Doruko, but her elegant designs, beautiful fabrics, and graceful taste caught attention quickly. Word spread like wildfire. Orders poured in not only from nearby villages, but from cities beyond. Traders, chiefs' wives, and even government officials began seeking her pieces. Mireia Wears became the pride of Doruko. But at home, Mireia remained silent and graceful. She still cooked for Tefari, greeted him with polite smiles, and did her duties as if nothing had changed. Tefari thought her silence meant forgiveness. He believed she had moved on and accepted things. Little did he know, the woman sitting in his house was now richer, more powerful, and more connected than he had ever been. To support her growing business, Mireia hired a personal assistant, Fakari, a bright young woman full of energy and loyalty. Fakari handled schedules, managed clients, and helped expand Mireia's empire. Together, they took Mireia Wears to new heights, opening new outlets and making business deals across regions. Mireia, once just the quiet wife in Zuwala, had now become a business queen, but she didn't make noise about it. She didn't boast, didn't flash her wealth. She just kept building silently, letting her success speak louder than any words. And all the while, Tefari remained in the dark, thinking he still held the power in the marriage, unaware that Mireia was rising beyond his reach. Her revenge was not loud. It didn't come with fights or tears. It came in the form of success, in the form of self-worth, in the form of quiet strength that made everyone respect her even more. The same woman he betrayed was now becoming a name people spoke with admiration across regions, but he was yet to realize the full storm that was coming his way. The day of the grand cultural festival arrived, and the village of Zuwala was buzzing with excitement. People dressed in their finest traditional attire, drums echoed through the air, dancers moved gracefully, and the air smelled of roasted maize and sweet hibiscus. But this year's festival was different. Everyone was talking about one name, Mireia. She had been invited as the guest of honor, not just as a speaker, but as an icon of strength and success. Her textile brand had become a household name across regions, and people were eager to see the woman who had risen so high, so quietly. When Mireia stepped into the festival grounds, jaws dropped. She wore an elegant outfit designed from her own collection, rich, royal fabrics that shimmered in the sunlight. Her presence commanded respect. She was no longer just the wife of a merchant. She had become a queen in her own right, flanked by regional chiefs, top business merchants, and respected elders. She walked with grace and dignity, her head held high, her aura glowing with confidence. In the crowd, hidden among the people, stood Tafari. His eyes followed her every step. He looked nothing like the proud man he once was. His clothes were faded, his shoes dusty, and his face carried the shame of regret. His business had collapsed months ago after trying to impress Nwena with lavish spending and poor decisions. Now, broke and abandoned by the same maid he had betrayed his wife for, he stood there, watching his former wife shine brighter than ever. As Mireia took the stage, the crowd erupted in applause. She began her speech, not with bitterness, but with inspiration. She spoke about the strength of women, the importance of self-worth, and the power of rising from pain. Her words flowed like poetry, touching hearts and igniting hope in women who had suffered silently for too long. And then came the moment that shook everyone. Mireia smiled gracefully and announced the launch of her foundation, the Mireia Foundation for Abandoned and Betrayed Women. She explained how it would offer business training, shelter, and financial support to women who had been mistreated, forgotten, or left behind. The crowd went wild with claps, cheers, and praises. Women wept. Elders nodded with pride. Young girls looked at her with admiration. But not once, not even once, did she mention Tafari. His name was erased from her story, from her journey, from her success. He was nothing more than a ghost in the background. He stood frozen, swallowing his shame, as he realized that the woman he once looked down on had become everything he could never be. People looked at him with pity, some even with mockery. He had publicly disgraced himself not through scandal, but through his own foolishness. And Mireia? She didn't even look his way. She smiled, took her final bow, and walked off the stage like the queen she had always been. Only now, the whole world finally saw it too. After the cultural festival, Mireia's life soared to heights no one in Zuwala had ever imagined. She wasn't just a businesswoman anymore. She became a symbol of strength, grace, and power. She used her wealth wisely, buying lands across villages and turning them into fashion hubs. She launched fashion academies in Doruko, Mabuli, and even in the distant town of Yakira, offering free scholarships to young girls who dreamed of becoming designers. Her mission was clear. No woman should ever feel helpless again. Her work caught the attention of Queen Nalio of the Kabula Kingdom, one of the most powerful and respected monarchs in the region. The queen, impressed by Mireia's elegance and vision, appointed her as the chief style advisor of the royal court. Mireia, now designed for royalty, sat at high councils and traveled across kingdoms, spreading her light and empowering others. She appeared in magazines, was interviewed on national radio, and her face became a symbol of hope on billboards across towns. Women from all walks of life came to her for guidance, and she welcomed them with open arms. Yet, through all her success, Mireia remained humble. She never used her pain as a weapon. She simply used it as fuel to rise higher. Meanwhile, Tafari's world was falling apart. His debts kept piling up. His shop had closed, and his name had lost its shine. People whispered behind his back, calling him the man who lost everything for nothing. And Nwena, she had changed completely. The same woman who once clung to him like a trophy had grown cold and restless. The shine had worn off, and now she flirted openly with younger men in the village, seeking attention and gifts. Tafari couldn't stop her. He had no money, no pride, and no power left. The house once filled with laughter and warmth had become silent and broken. Tafari would sit in the same spot every day, staring at old photos, wondering how his life slipped through his fingers. Sometimes he would see Mireia's interviews on TV or hear her voice on the radio, and he would feel a pain deeper than anything else. A pain not just of loss, but of regret. But Mireia never looked back. Not once did she confront him, not even to throw harsh words or seek apologies. She had no interest in dragging herself into the past. Her silence was louder than any insult, her success louder than any revenge. Where Tafari had tried to humiliate her, life had lifted her even higher, and when Nwena had tried to replace her, Destiny had removed her value. Mureya's glow only grew stronger with each passing day, and the world could clearly see that the woman who was once betrayed had now become untouchable. Nwena's glittering charm didn't last forever. As Tefari's wealth dried up and his business collapsed, so did her interest in him. She had thought life with him would be filled with riches and luxury, but instead, it became a life of struggle and frustration. The man who once spoiled her with gifts now couldn't even afford a meal. The house, once warm and lively, was now filled with tension, silence, and arguments. Nwena began staying out late, making excuses, and entertaining whispers from other men in the village. It wasn't long before she met a foreign trader passing through Zuwala. He was tall, charming, and had the scent of wealth all over him, everything Tefari no longer had. Nwena, driven by greed and the illusion of a better life, packed her few belongings and left Tefari without a single word. She ran off with the trader, dreaming of riches in a distant land. But fate had different plans. The trader, who only saw her as a temporary companion, abandoned her the moment they reached his town. Stranded and broken, Nwena had no friends, no money, and no one to turn to. Reality hit her hard. The same beauty that once opened doors now meant nothing. No one cared for a woman without value or virtue. Ashamed and desperate, Nwena made the long journey back to Zuwala. But this time, she was not the proud, admired beauty she once was. She returned barefoot and hungry, wearing torn clothes, her hair messy, her eyes hollow. The villagers recognized her immediately. Whispers turned to laughter, and laughter turned to mockery. "Is that not the same maid who destroyed Mureya's home?" they asked. Children pointed at her, merchants turned her away, and no one offered a hand. She ended up sitting by the market gates. Ironically, right under the tall banner of Mureya's fashion empire. The woman she once tried to ruin now had her name shining high above the very place Nwena begged for food. Every day, she watched women walk into Mureya's boutique with pride and joy, while she sat in the dust, invisible and forgotten. When news reached Mureya about Nwena's return, her staff expected anger, maybe even revenge. But Mureya simply smiled and said, "Let life teach her what I didn't." She didn't send guards to chase her away. She didn't send insults or threats. She let karma speak. Her silence held more power than any words. The same woman who once tore her world apart was now beneath her success, watching it grow while she faded into the shadows. And that, perhaps, was the most painful punishment of all. Tefari, once the proud merchant of Zuwala, had become a ghost of his former self. His fine clothes were now worn-out rags. His confident walk had turned into a slow shuffle, and his eyes were filled with regret and emptiness. The man who once looked down on his wife now walked with shame through the same streets where people once praised him. Every corner of the village reminded him of what he had lost: his home, his dignity, and most of all, the woman who had truly loved him. One sunny afternoon, the village square was buzzing with life. Traders were selling spices, women were laughing, and the air carried the aroma of roasted yams. And then, there she was, Mureya, walking gracefully through the crowd, surrounded by admirers. Her aura was different now. She was no longer just a wife. She was a symbol of strength and success. Her elegant outfit, her confident stride, her calm smile, it all spoke of a woman who had healed, grown, and transformed. Tefari saw her from a distance and couldn't stop himself. He rushed forward, falling to his knees right in front of her, tears streaming down his face. The crowd went silent. "Forgive me. Please come back," he cried, his voice trembling with desperation. "I made a mistake. I lost myself. I lost everything. But I still love you, Mureya." For a moment, there was silence. Mureya looked at him, not with anger, not with hatred, but with a deep calmness that shook everyone watching. "You chose your path, Tefari," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I walked through the fire, but I didn't burn. I bloomed." With that, she turned and walked away, her head held high. Tefari remained on his knees, weeping, while the villagers whispered among themselves. No one offered him comfort. No one pitied him, because everyone knew he had broken a diamond to chase glitter, and now he was left with dust. That day, Zuwala witnessed more than a dramatic moment. They saw a woman who had risen from betrayal, who didn't seek revenge through violence or anger, but through growth and grace. They didn't see just a wife anymore. They saw a queen who had loved deeply, hurt silently, and risen powerfully. And as Mureya disappeared into the crowd, her words lingered in the hearts of everyone present. When you betray a woman who built with you, don't be surprised when she rises without you. Because in the end, kindness is not weakness. It is strength in disguise. And when a kind woman transforms, even fate watches in silence. If this story touched your heart, then remember, never take the love of a loyal woman for granted. Betrayal doesn't always break her. Sometimes it awakens her power. Mureya's journey reminds us that silence is not weakness, and dignity speaks louder than revenge. When a woman rises from pain with grace, she becomes unstoppable. How many Mureyas are around us, quietly enduring, silently growing, and one day, blooming into greatness? If you believe every woman deserves respect, if you believe betrayal can never break a strong heart, then let this story be a lesson for all of us. Let's raise voices for every woman who turned her tears into strength and pain into purpose. If you felt the emotions in this story, please like this video, share it with others so they too can learn, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful African life stories that inspire.
जीशन क्या मसला है तेरा? तेरा बटन बंद होता है अब? बंद बटन अपना बंद रखो।
इधर आओ शमी।
कैसा हाल होगा? आपको अरबी समझ आती है?
क्या?
मैंने बोला कि कैसा हाल होगा, मतलब और कैसे हैं?
अभी छोड़ो।
मैंने छोड़ना तो नहीं, छोड़ना तो नहीं।
अंकल मिलेंगे कल।
कल नहीं मिलेंगे, आज मिलेंगे हम। बच्चा
दादा छोड़ो।
जरूरत था।
हाँ।
झूठ बोलते हो?
है।
किधर है, दिखाओ।
हाँ यहाँ फोटो है।
नहीं है, नहीं है, नहीं है।
छोड़ो।
मामा किधर है आपकी?
ऊपर।
क्या बना रही है?
नहीं।
बच्चे से? हाँ।
अभी कुछ खाया है?
आलू?
नहीं।
रोज आलू खाते हो?
पकोड़े खाए।
पकौड़े भी खाने वाली चीज है, बताओ।
और फिर उधर में।
उल्लू का पट्टा। चलोगे मेरे साथ? हाँ? गाँव?